Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button. I am one of your hosts, Alejandro, and with me is the Chocobo Master.
Paul. Hey everyone.
Yes. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing well, Alejandro. It's been an interesting week of news and shenanigans, and I am very interested for us to get into it today. How are you been?
I just came back from a workout, so yeah, I'm kind of trying to get into a workout regime right now because I want to try to keep healthy because I don't want any health scares after a couple I've had recently, especially the our puppy leaving us after his own health scare last week.
Hmm.
Kind of has made me more aware about my own mortality. So yeah, I've been going out on walks in a part like people won't know this, but we are literally recording this a little later than usual on the days that we record because I went on a walk and then got stuck in traffic. I'm still wearing my workout shirt, so, so
I'm actually right after you finish. I'm gonna be going to do a workout myself, actually.
mhm.
So that's it's kind of ironic that you got to do yours first, and then I'm about to go take care of mine after.
Yeah, I like doing mornings because if I leave it to the afternoon, it kind of sucks because it's like you keep waiting for it. It's like, is it time yet? Is it time yet? You start thinking about it too much. Then by the
Hmm.
time that the time arrives, maybe you don't even have the energy to want to do it. And then when you start doing it, you lose the energy. So I'd rather do the whole let's get it out of the way now. Like
Yeah.
let's I already worked out, then I have the rest of the day ahead of me. So
In a perfect world, I would be the same, but since I want to blame my night owl tendencies because I start off with zero energy, and throughout the day, I slowly get more and more and more like a freight train until like 1, 2 o'clock is like my butter zone,
mhm.
and then I like get manic and then drop off all of a sudden. So I try to build it a little between that, and of course, all of my successful family members don't understand that. So I live the way I need to.
Yeah, it's very easy to become an night owl. I would think because we like playing games late at night. I know that's
That's
a
when everyone's online.
yeah, exactly. So, in fact, I was almost waiting for a raid yesterday, and that ended up not happening. And because I went to work out yesterday, then I managed to pass out at 10. I was like, this is kind of nice. So, like getting to going to sleep at normal hours.
Hmm.
so, so yeah, Paul. Enough preamble for that. So, what have you been playing?
I have been playing. I think I actually mentioned it briefly on chat. Well, I guess firstly, story time, everyone. I tried to play Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword when it came out, and I had a very fun experience. Namely, that being, I went to put the game into the Switch. I moved the Switch a little bit, and then I caught one of the wires with my foot and pulled the entire thing off, and then my Switch would not charge. I then had to bring it to the repair shop, and the guy was out of town, so it's not getting fixed until about Wednesday or Thursday, and then I'll be able to play that. So before I continue, Alejandro, did you have any thoughts on that crazy example of things that happened?
That is like one of the funniest things I had heard. Like because I was on a walk and then
Yeah.
I see all your texts because it was Zach that
Yep.
screenshotted because you tweeted about it and
Uh
I saw that tweet. I was like, oh my god,
huh.
what are the chances of that happening? So
Yep. It really sucks, especially with how often I take a lot of care to not mess it up.
and this happened because you bought it physically, right?
Yeah, I guess technically. I mean, I still had to put it in the dock anyway, and it
Mhm.
probably would have happened one way or the other. But yep, it wasn't fun.
Oh
But
my god.
I'm hoping.
When do you get your device back?
They said like Wednesday or Thursday possibly. They think they might be able to work on it before they were thinking, but at the latest Friday. That's what
That's
they're thinking.
that really stinks.
It does, but I guess it just forces me to go play something else. So,
Yeah.
um,
So
yeah.
yeah, so apart from that tragedy, do you play anything else?
Yes. So I actually restarted Mafia 3 from the start. For whatever
Uh,
reason, I felt like playing something open world that I could just run around and build a power fantasy, and also obviously since that one takes place in
New Orleans.
1960s New Orleans, or for them New Bordeaux, because they don't want to say anything that's going to get us pissed at them.
Hmm.
um, because they do say some very mean things about New Orleans in that, but also they say some very good things. I am very aware now of how repetitive that game is.
Ooh, yes, it is.
I did not catch it at first, just because I guess I was enjoying the environment and just kind of trying to burn through everything. But unless you physically force yourself to like play with different kinds of weapons, most of them all kind of play the same way. You've got just shotguns, every single automatic weapon, which kind of plays
The
the same.
shotgun's way too good in that game.
Shotgun
That,
is
yes.
crazy powerful, yeah. So it's almost like I picked up a random shotgun running around, and I was just clearing people out. And then it's kind of unfair with the way the mini map will kind of like lose track of people, and they'll show up behind you and things. So that was how I was dying for the most part. Got a lot better at the driving, but the main
quick
thing, yeah,
quick question. Does that game lighting still have problems?
yes,
Oh my god.
so much. All the textures and the like, are you indoors, are you outdoors, are you wet, are you dry? Some like obviously some of the cutscenes are pre-rendered, so Link and Clay will jump back into his default outfit or stay in whatever he's in, and there's almost no distinction between the two. So it's just like sometimes he's in his out army thing, sometimes
Yeah.
he's in whatever you got him in.
I don't think I played a game with lighting that botched. I remember hearing one of the podcasts I listened to, dude, when he was playing Mafia 3 back in 2016, he was like, lighting is all effed up in the game.
It
Sometimes
is.
like it's so dark that you can't see, and then the rising dusk looks like a hellscape.
Yeah,
Like
looks like a
you almost
nuke just dropped.
yeah, you almost feel like Satan's about to show up. He said.
um, And in addition to that, another thing that you actually, this was new to me putting it in on my PS5, was that it has a little dialogue box right when you start it up, and it says some things will act
Actually,
unexpected
uh-huh.
on the PS5, and it will actually break the game sometimes. I'll have to stop and restart the game because it'll finish like a district. I'll make the call and whatever. It'll go black and come back up, but it'll be like at this weird fixed angle right outside the building, and
Uh-huh.
things will go around and people will talk as if I'm there and stuff. And I can move according to my mini map, but the camera will be stuck in this one little space, and I have to close the game out and restart it to get it to actually work again. And I have no idea how to fix it outside of just redoing it every once in a
That
while.
sucks. So Mafia 3 is another one of those games that works on PS5 but not really. Because I don't know if
Basically,
I've talked about this in the podcast, but maybe I did. Yes, I did last week. Was it last week? Yeah. Yeah, Assassin's Creed Syndicate also is another one of those games
hmm,
that gives you the warning that
yep,
yeah, this game may not work correctly here. And in the case of that game, like the lighting's completely botched in that it's like it comes in and out in certain parts like a strobe like effect. So if
I would say
you
it's not as bad as that, at least. It's just like, oh, clearly this area is on a different lighting feature than the rest of
yes,
the game,
but
but
but here's what's funny because I enjoy looking at Digital Foundry, the guys from Eurogamer that do like huge technical analysis from resolution, frame rates of every game and every version of every game.
yeah.
When they were testing backwards compatibility back in November, they put in Doom Eternal, which was a recent game, and that game had the also the dialogue box of some things may not work in this thing, and that game ran flawlessly with like no problems whatsoever.
Hmm.
So backwards compatibility on PS5 works, I would say, and I'm glad it does because you remember the calamity that was the reveal of the specs and them
Oh, yeah.
initial like the miscommunication of oh yeah we tested the 100 most popular games on PS4 on this machine and we'll add more over time and I was like why does this not just work?
I
But
know.
then a week or two before before the system launched, they put the big blog post being like, "We tested everything, and here's everything that works, and here are the few that don't." And like some games that were not even listed anymore, like Afro Samurai
Hmm.
2, that was like so bad that it got delisted, and a bunch of other games. So I was like, okay, this is not the ones that you would like fret or cry. And even
Right.
like Shadow Complex Remastered was one that then was patched to then make it work. So
I would like to think in an alternate universe, if they had made that claim too early and then had to pull back later, that would have been a nightmare. So I
mhm,
think I understand why they did all that.
mhm. Yes.
And in the end, it's like, okay, I get it. It was a big scare, but I'm glad we fixed most of
Yeah,
it.
it still doesn't take away the fact that the Xbox is trouncing them when it comes to backwards compatibility
As far
with
as that
the.
goes, they just can't compete. I mean, until you can figure out how to get all the PS3 stuff
Mhm.
figured out, they're never gonna pull that kind of level to compare with
Exa-
Microsoft on that.
Exactly.
Um,
So, other than Mafia 3, was there anything else that you played, Paul?
that was all I really played. I did want to make one little caveat. It was gaming related, even though it wasn't something I played. I've been watching the YouTube channel Racevic, Raycevick. He
Hmm.
does these very in depth. Documentaries on games a certain amount of years after they've come out. I watched one about Modern Warfare 1,
Hmm. The
Mass Effect
2007 one?
Andromeda.
The
Yeah,
2007 one?
the
Okay.
original, yeah. And he was explaining everything about Activision and Call of Duty and Infinity Ward up until that point, stuff that I'd never heard of. And he does just really good research on everything. So if you ever have like an extra 30 minutes to an hour, each of his documentaries are fantastic. But that's one thing I spent a lot of time on,
Hey, it
especially.
was gaming related, so that works. It's not
Yeah,
like when back in the day when we used to do the show where we had what have you been playing, seeing, or what, like watching or
watching, listening
hearing, yeah, or
to
listening to,
everything.
and then we went in a long time because sometimes I listen to our old episodes just out of kicks and realizing, man, we took so long in that section because of that.
That's one I was like so exhausted every time we would get to the actual news. I'm like, all right, well, we just spent like an hour
Exactly.
talking about whatever we're dealing with.
Yeah, and so far we're 12 minutes in. So,
Yeah,
uh,
Alejandro, what you got?
yeah, so I last week I went in my whole stupor about like how tired I was about Ubisoft
Hmm.
potentially doing to Assassin's Creed what I didn't want them to do. That for some reason I was like, well, these games I already have are the ones that I Assassin's Creed is never gonna be this again, so I'll just play them again just for kicks. And I went back into Odyssey because I was like, there was a lot of DLC from this game that I have not played. Because they did like episodes, which funny enough, like it actually made me curious if what they did with Assassin's Creed Odyssey with DLC is what they mean more diving fully into the live service model that we read last week. They have the big map, but they added episodes that are not like they're like 6 to 8 hours long each, and they're fully packed.
Hmm.
And episode ends, wait for the next one. Now there's a new episode, a new set of people for you to kill, a new story content as it expands. And I'm like, I don't know what they've done with Valhalla because I haven't played Valhalla.
Yeah.
But if they do what how they expanded with Odyssey, like literally, if you put combine all 6 episodes that they released post launch, the first three are Legacy of the Blade, which tells the story of the first Hidden Blade, and then the other one is the Fate of Atlantis because you find Atlantis in that game, which is underwater. They did 3 episodes of that. You combine all of that, that's a full game, almost.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
Odyssey,
No.
it's already like a mammoth of a game. So I found that interesting. I'm like, hopefully they realize that what they have it now works and that's the way that they expand. But putting that aside, Odyssey is a big problem for me because that game's like crack cocaine. Like I don't know what it is, but that game's so addictive. Like I get so caught up in the loop because I have a fully decked out Cassandra. Like I have like so many my stats in the assassin because you can have hunter, warrior, and assassin stats to see
Yeah.
which way you can spec up and play the game. And I love playing in stealth. And because we barely have any stealth games these days, playing stealth in that way with the you become invisible. You have an ability to become cloak invincible. You have an ability to like run quicker. You have an ability to throw your spear of Leonidas and chain kill like at different distances
Oh yeah, I
and all
remember
of
that
that.
one.
And and there's just something about that to me is just so satisfying. And I always keep saying that every time I play that game, I have to pretend I'm playing the Wonder Woman game I've never played because of the way I've decked out my Cassandra with
Hmm.
the with the armor and all of that, that I feel like I'm playing as Wonder Woman, because you even have the ability to like fall off a cliff like such, and you won't die because she would like roll.
Mm-hmm.
She's almost like your character is almost a superhero. So yeah, I played a lot of that, and I don't know if I will get to Valhalla next because I haven't installed. I've heard that one's because that one's longer. I played a little bit of that, but knowing that you have a long game ahead of you sometimes puts a stop in that. And even though I played 84, I put 84 hours total into Assassin's Creed Odyssey back in 2018 and loved most of my time with it. It was like my fourth favorite game that year, if I remember correctly. Like now I'm at 91 hours because of just having done the first episode, and I have two more for the Legacy of the Blade, and then I have all the Atlantis stuff, which I've heard the Atlantis stuff is important for what happens in Valhalla. I was like, Ubisoft, you mother effers, why do you
Mm-hmm.
put something so important in that DLC? Well, then I have to play it now. And good thing I'm kind of like in the kick because there's now the fear that Assassin's Creed may not be that anymore. Other
Right.
things, other things I played. Avengers. I've been
Yeah.
playing. I've been playing the PS5 version of Avengers. In fact, like I replayed the campaign because they finally added an option for you to actually reset your campaign progress and play it as New Game Plus while retaining all your stats with all your characters and all that.
Oh, really?
That game, I know it's a big meme in the gaming community. Obviously, like the last snafu that game had was that they released a patch with new content, and somehow it was showing your IP address. So if you were playing on, if you were streaming that game, you were in the fear they were gonna get doxxed because it had your specific IP address. Which, of course, that would happen to that game. Every time I play the campaign of that game, I'm so happy and sad at the same time because why is this campaign so good? Why does it get the characters so right? I know like a lot of people complained initially when the Avengers game got revealed 2 E3s ago because it was revealed at the tail end of Endgame's theatrical run.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's gotten used to how the characters look in the movies. That then they would see the characters in that game, and everyone was like, "These are store brand
Yeah.
Avengers, or these are
The
cosplay
great
Avengers."
value
Yeah, the great
Avengers.
value Avengers. So that didn't help that game, but once you really get in and you start hearing like the story, like you that the story of that game works because it's not really centered in the Avengers. It's centered on Kamala Khan.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is a Kamala Khan game and in a story, and it's her exuberance and her hope in a very dire situation where the Avengers have been disassembled because they're being blamed by an event called A-Day that created Inhumans and wiped out the majority of San Francisco. And then the United States like banned them because Bruce Banner agreed in court saying the Avengers are a threat to society, and so everyone like split up, and Captain America was dead. So the majority of that campaign is like Kamala knowing that there was something wrong that happened during A-Day that wasn't the fault of the Avengers, and then she journeying to like gather and reassemble them. And when the story is put through her eyes, you forget about the store brand nature of the other characters.
Mm-hmm.
And the performances of Troy Baker as Bruce Banner, Nolan North as Iron
Iron
Man,
Man. Yeah.
Laura Bailey as Black Widow, and Travis Willingham as Thor, and I don't remember the guy that does the voice for Captain America. Eventually, you start buying these versions of the characters, and then when you add like Ashley Birch, who play Aloy in Horizon Zero Dawn, she plays Kate Bishop in the like story expansions that were free that they kept adding, and you forget that these are not the movie versions because the characterization of this game works because they had people that used to work at Naughty Dog that were directors of this thing. And to me, it's sad that they had so many great elements and the stupid live service model that they had to like insert into this game. It's because when you play campaign, as you see the set, there's Uncharted like set pieces here, like when you're flying as Iron Man, like you're trying to build up your suit. Like there's like a really cool moment when you start playing as Iron Man, you're playing as Tony Stark in his like mansion where he's hidden, and enemies are starting to attack, and you go through the mansion like picking up every piece of the armor to make like a makeshift Iron Man suit, and then you start using it. Then like when you go find Captain, spoiler alerts, you Captain America's not dead. You find Captain America trapped in the satellite, and you get to the satellite with Iron Man first, and then you switch. When you find Cap, you switch as Cap, and then the satellite starts like destroying itself. It feels like a Titanfall level because Captain America can like run He has the ability to run on walls and all that. It's like the crystal dynamics that I know and love shines in the campaigns, in the story content of this game. And then when I see that the majority of this game has hive missions that are kind of like strikes from Destiny, or like the Destiny aspects of this game are where the game is at its worst. Because I think it was the last episode or 2 episodes ago that I said, like, when you play as a melee character, sometimes the way that you can chain combos in this game, like in the abilities, and it would remind you of an action game like Devil May Cry, which that to me it's a big compliment. Especially when you play as someone as Kamala, the way you can, like, because she can stretch and all that, and you dodge and use her feet to like stretch and send them up. You jump up and then grab them, throw them, and keep punching. It's like it's very satisfying. But when
Mm-hmm.
you're playing as the when you're playing the live service style levels where enemies have too much health, it's just trying to punch and punch and punch and punch and punch, and that doesn't feel as satisfying until you stun them to do like a takedown. That's when it feels satisfying. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I wish I lived in the world that the live service, like, I think this is another Ghost Recon Breakpoint situation, like your theory that there was something cool that was being made and the suit came up and they said, you're gonna do this. And it feels that way, and I feel bad for Crystal because I know what they're good at, and it's the story content. Live service stuff, they haven't even released a raid. They promised a raid last September and they still haven't released it. Just to give you like an idea like how botched the live service component of that game. But as a campaign, I would recommend you play it. Like, I stand behind that campaign. It's good. It's 7.58 to 8 good. Like the rest of that game, no. Like,
I really want to one day.
you
And
could play it right now
I
through PS Now. If you haven't used your PS Now
I did
subscription.
already.
Oh, okay, there you go.
About a while back, but I did want to add one little thing on the voice actor for Captain America is Jeff Shine,
Jeff Shine.
also known as Carlos from Resident Evil 3,
Oh, it's
Chris
him?
Redfield from Resident Evil 8, and one of the characters from Mafia 3. Who would have thought?
Huh, there you go. So that's the thing. The voice talent that they hired for this game
Yeah.
is like that's the top tier. Like, you don't go bigger than Troy Baker, Nolan North, Travis Willingham, Laura Bailey. They're like the go tos to go there. And also, it's funny that Troy Baker, most of the Bruce Banner content is with Kamala, and he calls her kiddo. So
Mm-hmm.
you see like a lot of
Joel.
Joel and Ellie interactions between them,
I
but it doesn't.
swear.
Yeah, but it's not quite. It's like because he says the same words, but it's not like the same because obviously they're not cursing. It's like
It's a very different
this is the PG
tone.
13 version of Joel and Ellie.
Oh Lord.
So, and another thing I played, which you were not able to play because of your tragedy, was Skyward Sword.
Yep.
So we've been talking about this Skyward Sword HD release. I feel every single week something would come up about that game,
Something.
and I would say that for everyone that has, did you play anything at all about Skyward Sword?
Not besides what I used to back in the day. I
Okay,
literally couldn't even turn it on
yeah.
until
So you didn't even play it in your wife's
no,
Switch.
not
Okay,
yet. I was hoping to.
all right. So I'm taking a point on this one then. Skyward Sword. This is the definitive way for you to play that game. The um, the quality of life of finally being able to play that game not with motion controls but with actual button controls. It's weird at first because you're not used to play a Zelda game where your combat is in the right stick,
Mm,
especially because they finally added camera
camera.
controls that were not there. And to move the camera, you have to press the L button or L1 and then move the right stick for it to move, which is weird, but then it makes sense. Like, it clicks. I don't really think about it anymore. And finally, and just remembering playing the Wii version of that game. I remember how many times I had to stop to recalibrate the controller, where you had to lay down the Wiimote in a flat surface for it to like calibrate properly.
Sometimes
And
every few seconds.
yes, and this game, like the quality of life has removed so much friction in this game. It feels like you're going through it much faster. Like being able to speed up conversations just by pressing B before you have to wait for every text dialogue to
Which was
fill
already a
up.
thing. Why would they
Yeah, they
take
took it
so much
out.
away?
Yeah, and the fact that then like there's bug hunting in that game that helps with upgrades and some stuff.
Oh
And every
yeah.
time that you would pick up a bug before, you were always here. You pick up a bug. This is what this bug is, and then fill it up. And they like, it's just, it feels like they finally realize. And Fee, or Phi. I don't even know how you pronounce the
I
name of
think
that
it's
stupid thing.
Fee.
Yeah, so Phi is not as overbearing, and finally gives you the option to be like, she asks you, "Do you want me to tell you something?" You can choose no. I was like, okay, and she leaves. Like sometimes she will give that option. It's like, I want to tell you something. Do you want to hear it? Before it was no, you're gonna hear it no matter what.
Hmm.
And just all of that, and the game looking so much sharper, the watercolory art style shining so well now in a way that finally puts it on par with Wind Waker for me. And like in the way that I feel like now this HD version of Skyward Sword will age up so well compared to the Wii version that look all smudgy. Also part of its art style.
Hmm.
Very impressive stuff. So many quality of life stuff, and I would still say this is my least favorite of the 3D Zelda games, despite all that.
Yeah.
And I'll say why. This game has a really great story. It's also surprisingly very linear, more linear than your usual Zelda thing, which is more appreciated now in a world where we've gotten so many open world games that playing something more linear, it's kind of cool. But the effing dowsing that you have to do in this stupid game, how it stops you in your tracks. This game is so well paced when you enter a new areas, you're advancing and figuring stuff out and all that on your way to a temple. And then you reach the entrance of the temple or something, and they're like, now go do a fetch quest where you have to backtrack with your sword and looking up and douse and find 5 pieces of a key that you sometimes have to dig up, or find 3 animals. And I know what's coming up also, where there will be a place where it's gonna be so flooded that you have to like swim, and find like some music stuff that
Yeah.
is beyond horrible. So, and the thing is that previous Zelda games have had their fetch questy moments. Ocarina of Time doesn't, ironically, because I was playing Ocarina of Time, and that game is so you go, you go, you go, you go, you go, you go. Like the most fetch questy thing you can even do in that game is like just find an item for you to finally get it, like trying to get the hook shot in Ocarina of Time to try to get to the forest temple. You just have to go to a cemetery, push the one of the stones, and then you enter, and then to find the dead guy, that's a phantom that leads you to the hook shot, and that's it. And then now you can go to a temple. Wind Waker had a couple fetchiness. The worst one obviously was the Triforce quest at the end. That you have to find the 8 pieces of the Triforce. It's like every map,
Yep.
and then you have to decode the map that costs 397 rupees per map. And then you would have to find the piece and all that. That apparently that in the Wii U version, 5 of those pieces you just get normally, and then you only have to find 3, which that speeds up considerably that version of the game. Twilight Princess, when you start that game, you play as Wolf Link, and because the darkness has shrouded the whole area, there's 3 different sections, if I remember correctly,
Yep.
where you have to cleanse the area, and to that you have to find the tears. But it's 3 sections, and that's it. And then the latest, the last fetch questy stuff was you finding the statues to go to the Sky Temple, and that's quick, and it's easy to find because it's in every area. You just have to like move the statue, find a clue, and that's it. This one does it for everything. And what makes it worse is that because there are only 3 areas in this game, the forest, the volcano, and the desert, and you have to like repeat going to those areas because there are more temples within those areas, that game feels smaller than it needs to feel. And the fact that you have to also be dousing all the time, that's just I read one of the Game Informer reviews says that this is the Zelda with the highest peaks and the longest valleys. At its peak, when its story is clicking, when you're in the dungeons and you're in combat, this game's amazing.
Hmm.
In its valleys, I despise it. I literally despise it. And to me, that's unfortunate because I see now that I finally removed my frustration about the controls that I had when I finally played it. Now I see the potential. I can see a scenario for why people, our friend PJ included, says that this is their favorite
Yeah.
because somehow they managed to ignore all the BS
Yep.
and just focus on the great story, which is really great. It's charming.
It's probably one of the strongest
It's
from
the strongest story.
character
Yeah,
level into the
the
plot
writing,
level.
the writing is like that's the thing. This is a game that has no dialogue whatsoever. It's still the classic like muted and just reading the text, but the characters are so expressive. and the writing is so sharp and witty that you forget that you're not listening to voices.
Right.
It's like like Zelda is like she got attitude, but she's fun. Like
She
Groose,
literally throws you off the top of the village.
yeah, she throws after cog blocking you basically.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is, I feel this is the first Zelda, and I think only Zelda where there's like romantic tension between these two.
I know.
Something that has never happened before somehow, but it works and it's endearing. And the story is so great that I would say it's worth putting through so much BS. And I would say probably the dowsing, it's not as bad in a world where we're getting so many open worlds now, because it's still like in the same linear path. You just have to come backtrack in the linear
Hmm.
path. So I feel Skyward Sword now, it's at the perfect time to really come out and feel appreciated. Now that it doesn't have the weight of expectations weighting him down, with it being the 25th anniversary of Zelda, which the game makes blip announcement. It's like we're celebrating 25 years of this, and like when you're in the competition to try to get the to become a knight, they mention the 25. It's like aha, cute, because this game came out on the 25th anniversary in 2011. So I feel now it's gonna be more appreciated, especially now that you don't have to feel the pain of the motion controls. And I would say I did play to do my due diligence. I was like, I'm gonna try a little bit with the motion controls, and thankfully now the only calibration you have to do is centering the thing, which is with Y, which is much easier than having to set your controller down
Hmm.
to be like, oh, just press Y. And they added the right stick camera to it, which you don't even have to press the L1 button to do it. So the camera is freely controlled while you're just playing with the Joy Cons, and moving left, right, and all that. Feels like I don't have to do as obvious a movement to get what I wanted. At the same time, I think if you have one, the Pro controller is probably the best way to play that game. I would recommend this one, this Mario one.
That looks like a pro controller.
Yes. So yeah, Skyward Sword, I'll still play it because I'm still on a Zelda kick. It's been really hard not wanting to put it down because it feels so bittersweet. I said that in our chat. As much as I'm enjoying how improved it is, like, and feel that finally the legacy of this game is gonna be improved now that you have a better version. Man, I wish I would be playing Wind Waker. Man, I wish I would be playing Twilight Princess on the Switch, not on my Wii. With that, does it's not even HD. Like it's, I know there's more. Like I saw a new rumor from a also verifiable insider that confirmed that Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, he's been reported that they're done and they're just sitting on it, kind of like they did Pikmin. And they're doing like other
Nerds.
stuff like Donkey Kong. I didn't put this in the news because I don't want to be making news about rumors and speculations, but we can talk about that here.
Hmm.
So I'm like, I know they're coming. And Wind Waker in particular, the quality of life of that late fetch quest is such that I tell you, it's like it's, you know what gets blue for me, not wanting to play it now. So
Yeah.
yeah, but we can hope. Like that's the thing, we can hope. Now we know that they got Skyward Sword out of the way. It's getting the reviews it needed to get because that game was highly overrated back when it came out on Wii. Got a bunch of tens. I've never seen a game get so many tens, and then everyone call it trash and all that. Like years later, like the reviews didn't age well for that one. So I feel now it's being properly. I would say at the same time I don't call it trash. That game's not trash. Everyone that calls it trash, like get over yourself. This is a really good game. I would even call it a great game.
Mm.
It's not the best Zelda game altogether, but there are elements that you can make the argument that could make it your favorite Zelda. So, more to come. Paul,
I hope I get to experience it at some point.
yes, you will. Hopefully, I'll keep going back to it because this is one that I will want to review myself. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna write in Critical Corner. I'm gonna write one, and then I remember PJ when he guest spot when you were on vacation. He said that he would want to come in. I would like to do like a roundtable discussion. I have my thoughts, but I would like to hear yours or him. Even though him is like his bias towards that game is like extreme.
Yeah.
I want to see if it changed because like to be fair to him, he reviewed Luigi's Mansion 3 when we had our website like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and he loved it.
Hmm.
I talked about him in our podcast about it, and he said he would change his score to go lower.
Really.
Yeah, so I think he,
Hmm.
knowing that he, even though he's like a big Nintendo fan, that showed me he has a modicum of objectivity to him that I would like to see if he plays through Skywars, or maybe he will it will pop his bubble. Who knows? But
I don't know. Based on what I've seen, he seems to be enjoying it immensely. So
yeah, I don't even know if he's really playing it though, because
yeah,
I
he's
follow his
more
streams. Yeah,
memeing.
yeah, he's memeing. But that's the thing. Like the Gruz memes is worth memeing about. Like Gruz is a
That
really
is true.
great character.
Dude,
So
talk about growth of a character for sure. As somebody that
yeah.
I hated, and then
Oh,
by the end
absolutely. You
loved.
love exactly that's what makes that story. That's what I said. Like the story of Skyward Sword is so great that I fear, especially because compared to Breath of the Wild, that has as minimum story as possible, that you have to find if you really want to know if there's any story,
Yeah,
like with like the echoes and all of that, and it's still like a complete like you can find stuff out of order, so it's not even a cohesive narrative. I fear the criticism of Skyward Sword hit Nintendo too close to home, that they got the wrong lessons. I fear that like for
yeah.
with because they, to be fair to them, Breath of the Wild not my favorite Zelda, because I like some specific things about Zelda. It's like impressive in its design as open world with what Nintendo did in their first ever open world game. So, but they shed so much that I like about Zelda that I feared was because the post mortems of Skyward Sword hit them too hard. So I wouldn't want, especially now that we're getting the sequel soon, hopefully, that they keep the design but start bringing a bunch of more Zelda stuff.
I really hope so.
Yeah.
And I hope this is also the start for them reevaluating some of their works and adding quality of life to
Mm-hmm.
everything that needs
Yes.
it. I would
Even Breath of the Wild needs quality of life.
even if they give us an amiibo for Wind Waker that lets us teleport
Oh,
from the star.
yeah, yeah. Okay. And Fee was like, you can. Here's the worst part, because Fee literally stops you when you find the statues that
Yeah.
send you to the sky. But like, you can use this statue to travel back and forth to the sky. Oh, and if you have the amiibo, you can go from everywhere. I was like, "F you,
Mm,
Fee!" like, like they were being intentional.
I
but,
know. They
but to be fair, now I'll say this: there are a bunch of those statues. Like they're literally everywhere.
yeah.
So it's not as bad as like my initial reaction was, and like, oh, they hate the fast travel mechanics of going to sky
I really
to
thought it
thing.
was more of a hassle back when I first played it.
But the thing is,
Um,
because there was so much friction in that game of like being
maybe so.
stopped so often and all that, it happened to me. I started thinking so much about the things that would stop you in your tracks about that game and the overbearing nature of fee,
Yeah.
that then just the idea of them locking away anything to make that game faster was like heresy. But because everything else had been sped up, I
Hmm.
tell you, like being able to like quickly move from dialogue, telling Fee to shut up if you don't need to hear her, always she is there if you need a tip, at least. Like at the very least, everything else has been sped up that I don't feel as angry. Even though I was angry that they referenced that there was an amiibo for that, I was like, screw you. I'm not
Mm.
paying $25 for that, especially because that amiibo got delayed.
Nobody
did
can even
it,
get it.
yeah, due to shortages. That was funny. So, Paul, it is time. Press
Press
X.
for some news.
All right, Paul. Last week we talked about the Nintendo dropping the bomb that didn't, whose fuse didn't go off with the Nintendo Switch OLED, and everyone like being flabbergasted at the fact that they took 4 years to release a new version of the Switch that was not powerful, extra powerful in the slightest. And they even reported this week, actually, people were like, then what happened to the other specs, that the rumored 4K DLSS, that whatever that thing was, that would make the things look prettier and all that. They said we're not planning any more revisions, parenthesis, for now.
Yeah.
What did Valve do, Paul?
Boy, they decided to not be outdone with their statement, and they decided to just announce randomly a entire mobile Steam Deck
Yeah,
console.
basically they pulled a Thanos and be like, we'll do it ourselves. You want the Switch Pro? Here's the Switch Pro. Here's the Steam Deck, a computer-like portable device that will compete directly with the Switch by offering on-the-go gaming with PC-like specs and access to the ginormous Steam library currently available. It comes out with three different SKUs, starting with the lower end model with small memory at an aggressive $399, and comes preloaded with the Steam OS that will pair with a dock for people to play on their TV if they so desire. And it's modular. You can install Windows to it. You can install so much. It's like a PC that is modular enough. And the device is said to be coming in December 2021. That was a bomb that dropped and exploded on us last week.
That I would have
Yes.
accepted this to be like, hey, we're still working on this. It's coming next year. But the fact they're saying it's this year, they have so much about it to be said. Like nobody heard about this really at all
Hmm.
outside of like I don't even think there were really rumors. There used to be, but that was like wish fulfillment, really.
Yeah.
Um, I have one concern about it really, and that is
Hmm.
the storage capacity. These games, if they're actually playing Steam PC games,
Hmm.
that is a lot of storage space, and their
Yeah.
basic one is up, I think, 64 gigs.
Yes,
That's
that's the lower
not
end at
doable.
399. However, they had you can put in more memory as
Like
so you
SD
please.
cards.
Yes.
Okay, so that's doable, but
Hmm.
still, I mean, like when you compare it to something like basically, if you're going to be taking it anywhere, you're going to have to make sure you're running maybe like one or two games, and then delete those, download a couple others, maybe.
I would say that coming in at as low a price for such a powerful machine,
I will give it that. I'm just that
that
was a
then you just
nitpick
slowly,
that
yeah,
I
that you
wanted to get
can,
out of the way.
because that's the thing. The higher end SKU is $629 for 512 internal
Yeah,
SSD. Actually, the higher end one actually has an internal SSD on it, but these are
true.
all modular devices, and you can install as you like. And
That's the
that's
cool thing.
and that's the beauty with having an SKU at a lower price, as compared with a competitive price is 399. That's the price of a PS5 digital.
Exactly. And you get mobility, you get
Mm-hmm,
everything Steam's ever made. Everything. Well, let me think. So you can play all of your Halo stuff because all that's on PC. You've
mm-hmm.
got everything that Sony's decided to port to PC. You've
Yeah,
got everything. Man, just imagine if you can put emulators on this thing. Holy
you
crap.
can because it's modular. You
That's
imagine if you,
true.
now imagine if someone like makes a Switch emulator.
Bro, if this goes well, this is going to change so much. Um, I haven't even really been able to process it honestly because I
Yeah,
still worry that there's going to be some kind of execution problem on like the
always.
processing speed,
Mhm.
just the way that it kind of is going to actually play out. But I think this is such a huge step in the right direction, and giving them this opportunity to do this and show that it can be done is going to get everybody up on board. I
And
think
this is what makes me even more excited about this. It's finally someone directly competing in the market Nintendo
with
has by
Nintendo,
itself. Yeah, because Sony used to be in that market with the PSP and the Vita.
yeah.
The PSP was such a success for them, but unfortunately it got hacked to oblivion. So
Mm.
they were not able to make much money out of software because everyone ROM hacked it. Everyone like was able to like extract so many games just by finding ROM hacks, all of
Kind
that.
of wish I'd been able to get in on that one because I had
Yes.
like 3 games for the
Yes.
PSP.
Same. I only had God of War, Chains of Olympus, FIFA '08, and Siphon Filter. Um,
Ooh, classic.
Dark. Yeah, I don't remember which one. The last Siphon Filter that came out of PSP because there were two. One was called Omega Strain because Dark Mirror was the first one. Those are the
Yeah,
only three. But then I modded the PSP and downloaded a bunch of crap to it. The Vita was then released as a Sony that was so afraid of it being hacked that even though initially, that's the thing, if you go back to E3 2011 when the Vita was officially more detailed and it was shown games and all of that and was shown a price point that competed directly with the 3DS that was 249.99 at
yeah.
that time, and the 3DS was struggling. The 3DS was not selling well. The 3DS had no games at the beginning. So then when the Vita announced that they were coming in at the same price as the 3DS, Nintendo was forced to drop $70 out of the price, which like immediately it was like the thing launched in March and by August was already dropping the price. That was
Hmm.
like insane. You don't see a price drop of a device that early unless it's really struggling, but a a price drop and having Ocarina of Time 3D kind of like launching around the time of the price drop, and then eventually releasing Mario 3D Land, Mario Kart 7, and a Monster Hunter game, kind of like all back to back.
Yeah.
really breathed life back into 3DS. Actually, it breathed it back so much that it undercut the Vita's launch,
Yeah,
and then the Vita didn't launch well at all. Like it undersold what Sony was estimating, and they chickened out and left that system to die in the wither. So
which is a shame
it was a shame
because
because the
they
Vita
had a
was a
lot of
great.
potential for it.
Yeah, the Vita had like its form factor is so good. Like it felt so comfortable in my hands.
Hmm.
The potential of this device was so great that it's sad that it got screwed by unforeseen circumstances in its launch, and then Sony not really committing to it because they had to commit to the PS4 immediately after. So they were not able to like put their own games to it, while Nintendo did. So and then eventually, so then when the Switch came out, it was like the Switch was uncontested as a mobile device,
Yep.
and we see the sales. That thing's skyrocketing. It's still the best selling machine, even with the Xbox Series X and the PS5. They're like obviously being hampered by the supply constraints and all that. And it really sucks that no one wanted to compete directly with Nintendo because that I feel Nintendo has been riding a sense of complacency recently. I don't know if you agree.
Oh yeah,
I hope
absolutely.
that now that Valve is coming in very aggressive. That's the thing. Valve attempted to get into the console market with the Steam machines
Machine. Yeah.
in 2014, but it was so confusing and it wasn't priced properly that those things never came to really full fruition.
Hmm.
So with the Steam Deck, it feels like they found the market because they saw no one else is doing anything in this market other than Nintendo.
No.
Nintendo has a very weak AF machine that's not gonna withstand more games the farther we keep going. That's why everyone wanted the Switch Pro because we already had a technological leap with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. The Switch is a machine that is running on specs lower than the Xbox One, the original one that was already weaker than the PS4. So, technologically speaking, the Switch is like getting into ancient territory when it comes to technology. That's why everyone was flabbergasted that this revision didn't have any sort of power improvement. So just based on that perspective and the fact that one of the things that has carried the Switch is the fact that indie games have made a home there
Hmm.
because indie games for some reason work so much better in handheld than
They
they
do.
do in TV sometimes. That's why the Vita when it was struggling indie games like there was a few years 2013 to 2016 where the Vita was the haven for indies. That was like you can buy a PS4 indie but you could play it on Vita and Vita those games just felt more at home there. But then when the Switch came out, indies migrated there
Hmm.
because just the portability of it just makes them better games for for the kind of consumer that would appreciate that kind of game. That's more of a portable thing. Steam is littered, and I say littered with indies.
Oh yeah.
In fact, a lot of the indies that go to Vita or I mean go to Switch were on Steam first. Let's not even forget like
Well, yeah, because it's the easiest to put it on there. I mean, that's
mhm,
one of the things that Steam even had their whole renaissance and panic when Epic Store decided to show up and try undercutting that by giving more profits to
mhm,
developers on it.
exactly.
Which I guess that is one thing that anything that's going to be exclusively on the Epic Store is going to be unavailable for this. But I'd say
Actually,
that's a
no, because you can
wait, really.
since it's a modular thing, you can install the Epic Store there. It's a PC.
Oh.
That's the thing.
That's true. I keep thinking Steam Deck and
Uh-huh.
thinking, well, it's just exclusively all Steam stuff.
Yeah, obviously you would have to like pony up and try to get a Windows license to install on that thing, but you can do that.
Hmm.
Like you can install Windows on this thing. So with Windows installed, like the Epic Game Store is run through Windows.
Yeah.
Steam Deck's gonna run Windows. So even then, like you'll be able to get both like
Yeah.
best of both worlds. And in that case, Valve wins because they would still be buying the machine from them.
Right.
So that still works. Like
It's
it's
like you
like
can play whatever you want as long as you buy it.
yeah. I mentioned that I mean to me portability is not big these days because I don't do public transportation. I don't go out too
Yeah.
much, so I can play things through the TV. But for people that do, I hope the Steam Deck does well.
I really
Like
hope
I
so
really
too.
hope so because when you have two competitors and they're both really doing well, what does it do for the other one that has just been reigning in the market?
It
It puts them
just
in their toes.
yeah. It provides what's the statement? Competition breeds ingenuity,
Hmm.
I
And
believe.
I think Nintendo needs that right now. maybe that way when they see that, they will start pumping out more of those games that they're holding. Maybe that's the way we get our Zeldas that we want.
That's what I'm hoping.
So, Paul, number two,
Yes, indeed.
we're getting close to the fall season. Usually, fall is when we finally start getting new games and all that. Unfortunately, because we're still in the middle of this goddamn pandemic, delays are still happening. And this one came as a surprise to me because I didn't even realize this was even meant to be targeted for this year because the other game has been getting promoted.
Me neither.
Bethesda owned team Tango Gameworks, the makers of The Evil Within 1 and 2 and the upcoming PlayStation 5 timed exclusive Ghostwire Tokyo, announced that the game, which only had a nebulous October 21 release window that I didn't even know was there, compared to the more firm release info of Deathloop, which we know comes out on September 14, 2021, is being pushed out all the way into an undetermined time in 2022 due to complications in development due to the stupid pandemic. And they cited the health of the team as a reason for the delay, which, you know what? Let them have it.
Yeah.
It's unprecedented times, and like, even though people are getting more vaccinated and all that, it's like we don't have to forget that this thing is still happening. There's a new variant of this virus that uh, is ravaging people that have not gotten vaccinated yet, and that fear and the fear is that if more people are not getting vaccinated and this Delta variant of this virus keeps like spreading,
Yeah.
it might cause a big problem. So I understand, like, it makes sense, like, delayed. I mean, Bethesda didn't need that other one. They have Deathloop. Deathloop's
Hmm.
getting a good promotional push on PS5.
Which I would say, if it was any other time going on without all of these quarantines and delays, I almost think that Deathloop would have been forgotten amongst everything else. I mean, back when it was first announced, it was forgotten by just about everybody, at least for me. Until now, when everything else has been pushed back or released, and now Deathloop is kind of in the middle, saying, "Hey, look, I'm
I,
here," and then there's nothing else
I
going
feel
on.
Deathloop got both Deathloop and Ghostwire got a little bit of a pop, despite being announced both together in 2019 because they got bought by Sony. They got bought exclusivity, timed exclusivity by Sony.
That's true.
So just the fact you know that that thing is exclusive to a platform that tends to give it a little bit more of a pop because Bethesda's problem is that a lot of their games that are not the Skyrims or the Fallouts have not been big sellers. That's why the company was in a pickle and Microsoft just swooped them in.
Yeah.
It was easy for them to see $7.6 billion and be like, yeah, even though we're not worth that, we'll take it. So this delay though does bring to light something, Paul. What does Sony even have for this fall?
Uh,
Deathloop is it. That's the
yeah.
thing. It's exclusive. That's it.
Unless
Just
they, well, Alejandro, there's always opportunity for Horizon, right?
that's the thing. They still. It's like they haven't said anything one way or another. If by August we haven't heard anything, it's over. That thing's coming out in 2022.
Yeah.
So we're still hoping that Sony eventually will say something, like they will have a state of play or something for their studios, so they can actually. And to be fair, when they announced the last state of play, the one with the 3D, the third parties and indies and VR games from, was it last week when we talked about it? Yes, I think it was. Um, they made point of saying, yeah, we're not gonna talk about Horizon, God of War, or the next generation of VR
Hmm.
right now, but we'll talk about it later. One way or another, they have to put a date to Horizon, and it would behoove them a little bit to try to have something for this fall. Like, obviously, they've been selling a lot. So that the PlayStation has been highly desired and selling a lot, just inertia alone of the
Hmm.
success of the PS4, not on anything the PS5 is actually doing. I feel this is a holiday that Microsoft is coming in like a lion with a bunch of games that they're putting in Game Pass on top of Halo Infinite finally coming out.
True.
You need something there. Like, I didn't put this in, but the NPDs came out and they mentioned that the Xbox had the highest earning amount in dollars that the company has ever had in a single month in June.
Really?
And yeah, even
Why
though they didn't,
June?
yeah, because NPDs always tells you how much something sold the previous month. June was
Okay.
E3,
Okay.
and Microsoft had a hell of an E3.
Yeah, I'll
And
give them
E3,
that.
yeah. So, which again, it should maybe now it's the time to Sony to realize, maybe this whole skipping E3 thing is not a big idea because huge momentum swing for Microsoft
That is
when
true, because we do still have that Sony possible thing going on in August that we're supposed to get. So
Hmm.
maybe that'll give us a little bit of light shed on fall. But um, besides that, you're right. Like Microsoft is just freaking crushing it right now,
Exactly.
especially this holiday season. If
And,
Sony
and
doesn't respond,
yeah, and what's funny is that they're crushing it, and they still haven't released a single exclusive this year, other than the Medium. So, but that's the thing because they have played the PR game so well.
hmm
They have momentum heading into this holiday. So,
and Game Pass is
and
not
Game
going
Pass,
away.
it's
So
oh no, the Game Pass is still gonna be a thing. So that's what I tell you. Even though I finally have a PS5, like that E3 conference, I tested my allegiance
yeah,
quite mightily. So to even make that, if I ever get that machine, maybe that's going to be where I play the majority of the games because most of them are going to be showing up on Game Pass.
hmm
It's just going to be better for my wallet eventually. So Microsoft is heading into a very aggressive fall. I hope Sony doesn't again, like Sony needs that kick in the butt also, kind of like what Nintendo, because they can't rest in their laurels just because the PS5 is being so successful already on just the momentum alone of their previous console. And I feel just having Deathloop as like your final exclusive of this year is not going to cut it,
yeah,
because no matter what, it's still a Bethesda game. It still doesn't have the eminence of one of your own games. Especially then, even last year, they even had freaking Spider-Man Miles Morales that pushed them hard.
that's
They even had
true.
Demon. They even had Demon Souls. They had
Man, can you
Sackboy.
can you imagine if they announced the Spider-Man 2 situation at whatever thing they have for this holiday season?
Mhm. I was talking with my brother about it because 2018 was when the first Spider-Man came out.
Yeah,
As Miles Morales was done by a separate team that was directed by Brian Horton, who came from Crystal Dynamics, who directed Rise of the Tomb Raider, and he led that other team to do Miles Morales. So the team that
it's
made the
been
2018
three
has
years.
been 3 years. So they could potentially finally announce that that game is coming maybe in 2022. Who knows? Like we already know God of War is a 2022 game. Do you hear my dog?
Yeah,
Damn it. Shit. We lost the vegetable man. Now we have my dog, my scandalous dog. So yeah, it just losing Ghostwire Tokyo like this, even though I've had forgotten that it was even the thing, made me was like, oh yeah, but what does Sony even have after that? Are they really
nothing.
gonna just rely on their Call of Duty partnership? I hope not,
I
because that's gonna
do.
suck.
Yeah. I mean, besides big things that are supposed to come out that are matched with everything, you've got your Far Cry, your
Hmm.
what was it, Battlefield, your Call of
Hmm.
Duty. Excuse me, a couple other things that I can't think of off the top of my head, but it's if they don't have something that's an exclusive, they're really going to be relying on the power of people that already have the console.
Hmm. And I would say because now they have a competitor that's like more hungry than ever, they could get away because that's the thing. The first few years of the PS4, they had a problem trying to launch exclusives during the fall. They were always in the spring. Bloodborne, Uncharted 4, all of that. For some reason, the fall just wasn't happening for them until like 2017.
Yeah.
And they went because they partnered with Call of Duty. The PS4 sold fine with their Call of Duty bundles and the get the maps here first Call of Duty stuff. But the thing is that I'm personally feel Call of Duty is very long in the tooth at this point. Like even Cold War, I feel like kind of came and went. I don't hear anything about Cold War. Obviously,
It's
Warzone
more
is
just
still
Warzone.
exactly. So I would hope that they're not too reliant just on that, especially because the reality of the $70 price point for them is gonna start hitting pretty soon
hmm
when all these Game Pass games start amassing more and more. So interesting that this Ghostwire Tokyo made me think about that. Number three, uh, delays are still happening, Paul. This time by our favorites, Ubisoft.
Yep.
So Ubisoft joined the delay party and announced that both Rainbow Six Extraction and Riders Republic, two games that took almost 30 minutes out of their hour-long horrible E3 presentation this last June, were both scheduled to release in September, and now they have been pushed. Rainbow Six Extraction, originally slated to come out on September 16, is now slated to come out in January 2022. Ironically, Rainbow Six Siege originally was an October game that then got pushed to December when it first released. So it's funny that they're, those games are going to come out around wintertime. And Riders Republic, that battle royale bike game that looks like Steep. That was slated to come out on September 2nd, but got pushed to October 28th. So instead of Riders of the Republic and Rainbow Six Extraction kind of like being sandwiched on top of each other in September, now it's Riders of the Republic sandwiched with Far Cry 6 that still has their October 7th release date. And that was a
Which,
great game. And that was a game that already got delayed because that was a February game
yeah,
originally. So I don't know if they can push that one again, but who knows? With Ubisoft, like Ubisoft, it's a complete dumpster fire right now. So who knows?
I've seen people. I mean, ever since the frickin' CD Projekt Red fiasco, I think there's been a new precedent on what can and can't be delayed a certain amount of times, and we've learned that you can try to polish crap all you want, and
Yeah.
it is going to stay that way. I think, unfortunately, this Riders Republic is going to get destroyed by Far Cry,
Mhm.
and it's their own competition going up against it. Not to mention, October is just the worst month to come out with anything unless you are the big hitters, because
Yeah.
you've already got
Back for
October
Blood,
7th.
the Far.
Actually, I think yeah, Back for Blood,
Mhm.
Battlefields
Yes,
is
Riders
coming out the same
Republic.
day, isn't it?
I think Battlefield is the same day
Far
as
Cry,
Riders
right?
Republic. No, it's Riders Republic. Far Cry is on the 7th. So Far Cry is kicking off that month.
I see. Well, okay. I'm just gonna make sure of this so I'm not crazy. Um,
So Paul,
where's the
because you
Yeah,
mentioned
October
it, I don't.
22nd. That's it.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah. So it's around that time. Everyone will be playing Battlefield.
right.
You mentioned Cyberpunk Fall, and I think in this podcast we've ever talked about the situation with
Mm.
Cyberpunk, specifically with you. How that was your most anticipated game last year, and you had to face the the harsh realities throughout that year.
Man, I can. It's such a weird situation because I genuinely did enjoy myself. I really did with experimenting with all of the wild options that you could have for gameplay. Like, I'll give it that. Being able to pair up hacking abilities with a gun that could punch through walls and just wall hacking entire buildings
Mm,
was great. But the lack of polish, the constant crashing. I was playing on the PS5, so I already had like such a leg up on every other
mm,
poor soul that had to deal with so much.
mm,
The lackluster voice acting in some places, the lackluster story, the side missions that didn't go anywhere, outside of like maybe two or three, really. Some of them that would just kind of end, and I thought I did something wrong. Like, Witcher's side quest. If you
mhm,
did something wrong, it would end the quest, and then you would realize, oh shoot, I actually didn't do that right at all. But if you did it right, it would continue on in this whole weaving web, and even if you did it right, the quests would just kind of end. Um, just so much going on that was for it. That was just really cool, and it just missed. And in the end, I don't really want to go back to it until something happens. And then apparently they said they were working on their next project already, and everyone said, "Okay, hold on,
what
you
about this
haven't
other one?
done any of this. You haven't even fixed it, much less like launched any DLC for it that you said you would."
Yeah,
Um, it's just such a mess that I don't even know if I want to think too much about it.
yeah. The cyberpunk thing to me was like we saw Icarus fall. Like CD Projekt Red was the studio,
Mm,
this most beloved studio of this past generation after The Witcher 3 and all its pro consumer moves and all of that. And he was still doing pro consumer stuff because they were the first ones to announce the free upgrade
yeah.
to the next gen version for Cyberpunk and all that. Obviously, the massive hype around Cyberpunk, just in the inertia that was Witcher 3. Obviously, then we got that first delay. That was like because we were supposed to get it in April, and then it got pushed to September. Then halfway through, around this time last summer, we got the push that oh yeah, this is getting pushed all the way to November 19th. So it's gonna come out after the next gen consoles. So making it like a de facto launch game for those systems, even though that was not the next gen version.
Hmm.
Then the game went gold. When you go gold, the game's done, or
It's
at least it's something that you can
supposed to be done.
supposed to be done. And then, like in unprecedented history, only a few times that had happened in history, they still delayed it
Hmm.
a few more weeks, even though they printed that thing and went gold. and then it launched in December. And unless you were playing on that next gen machine, that game that we got was so unbelievably foobarred that it even got removed from the PS Store
Yeah.
that just recently got back, like a few weeks
With
back. It got,
not a lot of improvements, but at least it's
yes,
there.
no, they put it back on with the warning. Oh yeah, you can buy this. Don't play it on a PS4. Play it on a Pro or a PS5. Like you having to sell something that you have to put that warning is
Mm,
like they pissed away all the goodwill, and I just feel bad for you because I wasn't that hyped for it like you were,
yeah.
because my big hype was Last of Us Part Two, and
Yeah.
then I had to deal with the shenanigans that was the leaks of that game and the discourse and me being at the positive side of the discourse and all the negativity with others and all that. But man, you had it rougher there. Good thing you got Ghost of Tsushima last year.
I'm really glad I got
Yes,
Ghost of Tsushima. I fell back on that game real hard, and I was like, okay, this is my game of the year, guys. It's okay. I
yes,
landed somewhere.
yeah, yeah.
Man, I it was such a crazy time for sure. I'm sure you remember all of the times where I would post the delay and be like,
Yes.
"Damn it,
Damn, yes, yes. No,
why?"
I lost it when you posted the one that it got delayed again, like for December, because
Yeah,
that when I was flabbergasted, I couldn't believe it because that's when
I
I
was
knew
like, they
there must
they
be something
went
really gone.
gold. That you
Yes,
can't do that.
exactly. So
Oh
man, why
man.
were you? It's too bad we're not recording around that time. Those would have been fun podcasts, I tell
That
you.
that would have honestly, but I don't know if it would have been fun to look back on. I think more
When we
so
reached the
than to
year.
go through
So
it.
here's the thing, because I played the PS4 version of that game and it was abysmal. I stopped
Yeah.
playing. I was like, I'm gonna wait. Like, in fact, one of my glitch videos made it to Forbes.
Oh yeah, I remember
Remember?
that.
Yeah, yeah. It's Paul Tassi from Forbes, my man.
Wait,
Well, I actually,
now
yeah,
you don't have an excuse, Alejandro. You have a PS5. Just go play Cyberpunk.
I don't want to. That's the thing. Now I have it, and I know a next gen
Yeah,
version is coming. So I was like,
it's
might as well, because I know the what's currently there. It's still a buggy mess. So I'm
yeah.
like, I'll just wait for the actual next gen bells and whistles. So that's what I'm doing with Witcher.
Hmm.
I've only played a few hours of Witcher. I've never beaten the Witcher. Now that I know a next gen version of Witcher is coming, I'm playing. I'm waiting to play Witcher there. I could play it right now on PS4 Pro settings, but why would I? There's a PS5 actual version that I'm getting for free.
I
So
didn't actually know that. That's cool.
yes. Final story, Paul. To kind of
Yeah,
like psychologize. It was just funny because you mentioned Cyberpunk and we needed to.
yeah.
I've been wanting to have that conversation because this is another. Because I would say just as CD Projekt Red has pissed away at all the goodwill, Ubisoft has done that, and we're still in the Ubisoft train because this week they continue the train of seeming like a husk of its former self, just consumed by corporate greed, because they announced a new free-to-play game in the Tom Clancy universe. Not Splinter Cell. It's called Tom Clancy's XDefiant, their version of a 6v6 hero shooter in the vein of Overwatch, which is mixing the Ghost Recon, The Division, Splinter Cell franchise with soldiers with specific classes. A test is coming to PC in early August, and this also joins the still to be released The Division Heartland, we talked about in their third episode back. That was another one of their free to play experiments. Let's not forget their last attempt at a free to play game, the Battle Royale Hyperscape from 2020. Remember that, Paul?
Hmm.
Crashed and burned hard and has already ceased being supported. They already said that they want to support this X Defiant thing for years to come. Good luck with that. They insist on following this free to play model while still remaining steadfast in ignoring the fan desire over an actual new Splinter Cell game. But yeah, let's keep parading Splinter Cell all over the goddamn place.
Yeah. There has been somebody that I don't know where I saw it, but they commented on the post saying, "I've seen more Splinter Cell stuff, but I'm too young to have ever actually played one of the games." And I'm thinking, like, Blacklist was the last one that came out. That was for the 360.
2013.
Yeah, and it makes sense because there's been people that have been gaming for a really long time now, and that game, which I used to think was so modern, is it's ancient now.
Splinter Cell was revolutionary back in the day. It was like one of the first games where actually used its visuals when it came to like lighting and shadows for its gameplay.
Hmm.
That was because obviously Metal Gear Solid was the other stealth game. at that
Right. But
time.
that didn't really incorporate the whole light and shadow thing.
No, that was about situational stealth,
Right.
like you moving, like being out of sight and all that,
Yeah.
and dodging cones and all of that. But Splinter Cell was all about the light and dark and shadows and using the gadgets and all that. And it was like those first games were tough. The trial and error of those games are brutal, but they were so addicting because when you nail them, you nail them. And Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, the third one, well, that's one of my favorite games of all time. And I sent you a list, the 20 in our group chat. I was like, for fun, I listed the 25 my 25 favorite games of all time across all
Hmm.
consoles, and Splinter Cell Black Chaos Theory is in it because the amount of freedom and flexibility and amazing stealth action Chaos Theory had, like it's such that they kind of lost it eventually with Double Agent. Like Double Agent decided to do the now you're infiltrating the terrorists, but you're doing terrorist stuff, but the 360 version of that game simplified the light shadow mechanic. It lost a little bit of its identity. Then it switched genre completely, like Conviction, which is fun, was more
Right.
like it was more fast paced, more of a shooter than it intended to be. And Blacklist tried to incorporate back chaos theory elements with conviction elements
Hmm.
together. And I would say it fairly worked, but then at that point, this is what angers me is that the 360 PS3 generation, for some reason, the last year of that generation, people stopped buying games
Yeah.
because unironically compared to this other generation, because they knew that, I think it was because they had announced the new systems were not going to be backwards compatible. A lot of the games that came out on that final year as we were headed to the PS4 and Xbox One didn't sell,
Mm.
other than big ones like GTA 5 and The Last of Us. And Blacklist was one of those games that barely sold, and I guess Ubisoft must have read into the tea leaves wrong and be like, no one wants this anymore. We're not doing it anymore. And to me, that sucks. Just read the freaking market. Everyone wasn't selling because everyone didn't want to keep investing in those machines because they were not going to be backwards compatible for
Hmm.
the next ones. Why did the PS4 and Xbox One games skip selling? Because we knew backwards compatibility now was going to be a thing with the new
Yeah.
machines. So the ecosystem stayed there. The PS4 and the Xbox One didn't really suffer with their final year. Obviously, we had the background of the pandemic. More people wanted to play more games, so that's why more people bought games because they needed to be entertained also about it. But yeah, the circumstances need to be read, and it sucks
I
that
would dare say an opportunity for them to figure this out, just from a business mind standpoint. Um, don't make a Splinter Cell game yet. Make a remaster of Blacklist and
yeah,
put it on modern consoles. See how people respond to that. Because I know
it,
personally, I would buy that. I have it, but
I have
besides like
black.
going on PC,
Yeah,
I
well, all of them are backwards compatible. All the Splinter Cell games are backwards compatible on Xbox. I have all of them there.
right. I don't have that right
Yeah,
now. But I like if I wanted to, I could go find my 360 version, put it in my Xbox One, but I just don't have it plugged in. But I'm just thinking from like standpoint of everyone else, if they really wanted to, even make like a collection of all the older ones, because frankly,
there
Conviction
used
was
to
my
be.
first Splinter Cell.
Did you know that the PS3 had a collection of the original Pandora Tomorrow and Chaos Theory that came out in 2011? There was a
Really?
Splinter Cell HD collection. Yeah.
Huh. I didn't even actually hear about that.
Mhm.
Weird. But I will say just I not just Splinter Cell but everything like the OG version of Ghost Recon. That was actually one of the documentaries I watched, which was Advanced Warfare.
Hmm.
Um,
And that's not even the
I went
original Ghost Recon. That
well,
was the
yeah, yeah.
first 360 one.
That was the that version of it. But yeah, like the Ghost Recon originally, the old versions of Rainbow Six, like just seeing some of that old gameplay of it, like really brought me back. And just they were talking about the idea of mechanics that changed after the advent of Call of Duty and
Oh yeah.
how varied and crazy different everything was. You look at the way you played SOCOM Navy SEALs,
Hmm.
another series I would love to see come back.
Yeah.
Just everything that was really unique and interesting about Ubisoft's work, just really going
Yeah.
down
As
the
an aside with
gutter.
the SOCOM thing, the rumor is that because Gorilla expanded its studio, the made Horizon,
Yeah.
and because they hired the Rainbow Six Siege director to join Guerrilla that
Well, you
maybe
think
one
they
of
might be
the
doing something?
they might be doing SOCOM because it's a shooter that Sony owns. They closed the studio that made SOCOM. It's called Cypher
Yeah.
Interactive. SOCOM died because the last SOCOM game that came out, SOCOM 4, came out the week of the PlayStation Network outage.
And it was a mostly multiplayer game, wasn't
It
it?
had a very short campaign. It was like almost 4 hours, but
Yeah.
what made SOCOM was its multiplayer, and no one could play the multiplayer. That by the time the PSN came back, no one
Man.
cared. No one cared. So that game died in the vine at no fault of its own because of.
I remember seeing back when I worked at GameStop, there was just a stack about this big of traded in SOCOM 4 games
Hmm.
just jammed into those drawers. Um, and it hurt my soul because I was like, man, this was kind of cool.
Hmm.
Why did that
Why
not
does
sell very well?
it was because the one thing everyone wanted to play it for didn't work.
Yeah,
So at no fault of the game, the online of that game worked. That's
right.
the problem.
And it was a
So.
popular feature of it. I remember even in SOCOM 2 for the PS2 era that they had that whole crazy adapter jacked in.
Plug in the
Their
broadband adapter. Yeah.
commercials. I remember their commercials very vividly about like, oh, why does this dude keep beating me? And it was like an actual Navy SEAL playing the game from like
Hmm.
overseas. And it's like you could play with anyone. Um, I just that whole concept was like before I was really interested in online stuff, but just the fact that it was so fantastic of a system that I still remember some of those levels. Like I
Hmm.
told you, like I'm a sucker for a good tanker level, and that
And
SOCOM 2
SOCOM had
was
a bunch
like
of them.
that was so good. So anyway, I'll digress, but needless to say, I wish they wouldn't go so crazy with Division. I wish they wouldn't do this whole free to play thing, but they clearly do not care about doing anything else right now, even with
Hmm.
sending people off the plank, getting rid of their creative directors and things.
Hmm.
Unless there's something down the pipeline in the next couple of
Exactly.
years, they really don't seem interested. And
Ubisoft has transformed into my least favorite company now.
I would
Like,
still say Activision's for me,
yes,
but
but that's the thing because Activision is the one I hate. Least favorite, hate.
okay,
Like,
yeah.
I still hate Activision because they're like the absolute greed. Like, I wouldn't have thought to say that the one of the big three that I'm feeling more high on right now is EA of all of them.
Who would have thought that?
Who would have thought that? But like Ubisoft, like it's continuous. Like I mentioned this last week with Assassin's Creed, and I went on that spiel. Like Ubisoft, like just ignores fan demand,
Mhm.
and even though there were a few moves that they made that would have made you think they were doing, like for example, let's not forget that there was a Prince of Persia remake that they were doing that was supposed to come out this January, then got delayed to the spring, and then got delayed indefinitely. So
That was the one for the trailer recently, wasn't it? Like the
yeah,
last year or so?
it was Prince of Persia: The Sands of
Holy
Time.
crap, I forgot
So
about that.
So they were doing that remake. So when you mentioned about doing a Splinter Cell remake, I'm like, they should do that with Splinter Cell after they do the Prince of
Oh,
Persia one because obviously,
absolutely.
like Prince of Persia is a series, another one that people when they think of Ubisoft, it's like next to Rayman and Splinter Cell. Please do another one.
Yeah.
So and the best way to like gauge interest is that do the remake. That's what Activision did with the Insane trilogy of Crash Bandicoot. Everyone
Hmm.
kept screaming, "Please give us Crash Bandicoot! Please give us Crash Bandicoot!" And Sony heard that, went to Activision, and be like, "They really want Crash Bandicoot," and Activision was like, "We don't want to do that. That doesn't make money." So Sony was like, "We're gonna put money. We're gonna bring it," and they put the money, and they were like, "We're gonna release the three original Crash Bandicoot games, like fully remade, but it's still the same game, but visually
Yeah.
with a new facelift, and that thing sold bananas. So if they do a remake of like if the Prince of Persia remake really sells, then maybe they're like, okay, we're gonna give them a Splinter, so let's remake the ones that are already there, even if you can play the backwards compatible versions on Xbox. Um, that's the only way for them to really gauge interest
I
instead of them trying
wish.
to pursue this free to play garbage. Especially like did sorry, we mentioned XDefiant. We haven't even talked about. Did you see videos of this thing
Of what?
of the XDefiant, the six v six
I
rail
only
shooter?
saw that one like Twitter thread that you showed us. And it looked like you had your little hero symbol right in the middle for their ultimate move, but it looked like it was just like a first person shooter in like the Division's New York area.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just beyond that. As soon as I saw it, I went, "Well, okay, I'm not gonna be interested in that." I shared that with the group that I play Rainbow Six with, who has also been very disgruntled about Ubisoft's practices. None of us are planning on getting Extraction, and I was like, "Hey guys, check out what they're working on now," and sent that, and all of them
You know what makes me sad
unanimously
is that
agreed.
I have to remember that Ubisoft is also working on a Star Wars game.
Yeah.
Yeah, in oh man, we'll cross that bridge when we get
Who
there.
would have
But
thought
yeah,
I'd want EA to take back the mantle of Star Wars running? Ah,
oh man, what a way to go out this week, huh? Well, Paul,
who
that's
would have
it for the
thought?
news. Yeah,
Yeah, that's it for the news. But we're gonna go back and just play some more fun things right now. We'll
yes,
just ignore all that.
yes, less of a chunky week compared to the previous weeks. I'll take that, and I'll keep playing Skyward Sword in the meantime. So, Paul, where can people find you?
As always, Twitter at Dork of Art, YouTube at Dork of Art, and Twitch at Angel Sword 21. Alejandro, where are you at?
Yeah, they can find me at twitch.tv/the Slayer Giant. They can find me on Twitter at A_Dro Segovia. They can find me on Instagram at Alejandro Segovia 93, and they can find my reviews at thecriticalcorner.com, which I'm gonna plug in. I did a review for the Loki TV show.
Oh
It's live there. So if
yeah.
you want my thoughts of the on the three latest MCU TV shows there. I had write ups there. I might do a write up for Skyward Sword, like I mentioned earlier here. So, and also don't forget that the X button posts not only on YouTube but also on our podcast services. All of them except Apple Podcasts, unless you use the RSS feed that's provided at anchor.fm/escape dash media. So don't forget, if you like this, share, like, subscribe, tell us what we if you want to say something to us, feel free to say anything to us, and we'll always be here every Tuesday, God willing. So,
Yeah,
Paul, it's
are we wrong, by the way, to anybody commenting? Do you think that it's perfectly fine for Ubisoft to do this? Are you excited for XDefiant? Tell us why we're wrong, please.
yes,
I want to hear why
absolutely,
you are.
absolutely. Tell us. So, Paul, it has been a pleasure, and until next time, press X.
To play.
See you guys later.
Adios.